What is up, guys? Mcdoubles back again with a brand new episode, and today we're going to be playing our demon hybrid that we've been playing for so long now. I really do love this character. He's getting very good, and in this video we try once again rolling him from 20. As we said in the last video, we reset with a bang. We did end up winning that last fight, but we decided to sacrifice ourselves. Will this be the run that we actually get the perfect abilities? I'm talking Wind Fury, Divine Shield, or Lay on Hands, stuff like that really packs a punch. But this is time for you guys to find out, so I'll stop talking. Let's jump right in. So this was a very interesting run. I decided that the way that I'm going to have to do this character, and the way as a result that I'm going to have to do these videos for this specific character, is I'm going to have to do runs with this character multiple times, leveling on my way to 60, and I have to hope I get the best build possible. It's simply not efficient enough or worth playing on a character that is not as good as it possibly could be when you've already put in all the work to get the best gear that you can get, which we have currently gotten very good gear, and we're still on our way to working for a full epic set. But also when you start min-maxing your starter builds, you know, not taking it that extra step feels futile. It feels not worth it to me. So we have to, right? So in this particular run, did we get the best build? Well, I'm going to give you a little bit of a spoiler here. No, we do not, but we get a pretty interesting build that at the very minimum is going to allow us to think a lot more about how we play this particular class. Now, the first notable ability to keep in mind here, you'll see in the background, is we do in fact have Shadow Burn. Shadow Burn does something special, right? Because it allows us to obtain Soul Shards. Soul Shards can be used to get the Felguard or other demon pets. Now you might be thinking, Mcdoubles, why would you want another demon? You are a imp spec build. This is a very good point. However, I have definitely been thinking about playing the Felguard in place of the imp, and maybe changing a few talent points out as a result of that, and doing a demon hybrid in that way. And so Shadowburn serves to maybe give me more options in the future. Right now, I'm going to go ahead and put 3 points into improved imp to go ahead and make his firebolt and his shield stronger, and then 5 points in ruin, or at least 2 for the time being. Now, ruin is an incredibly good talent point that I really didn't consider before, simply because I didn't know that it gave my imp a 100% increased crit damage effect. That's incredibly strong for an imp spec build, clearly, and yeah, I didn't know it did that. I knew it did it to destruction warlock spells, but the addition of that increased critical strike damage is a huge game changer. It fundamentally changes how my build plays by making my imp hit literally double what it was possible of hitting before, at least when it crits, which it is going to be critting the majority of the time. So that was a very interesting fight. I will say we just straight up did everything better than our opponent in that situation in terms of character build. I'm not really talking about skill. What I'm talking about is the fact that at the end of the fight I had more mana and more health, so that does say something, right? Now I think the imp did quite a lot of damage in that fight overall. Really, we're just SS spam, but again, because we have the Rockbiter weapon and some other pretty good build choices, I would say that this all comes together to make it just a little bit easier for me to win fights against people who have possibly less refined builds, or builds that aren't as good at a lower level. Now, with that being said, I will say that the ability Shadow Burn actually did come in handy quite a lot there, and one thing I noticed is that not only does Shadow Burn benefit from my increased critical strike damage bonus of my destruction spells with the Ruin talent that we're now taking, but it also benefits from another talent I was not getting the full full effect from due to lacking a Warlock Destruction spell, which is the Empowered Imp talent. Now, the Empowered Imp talent increases the damage done by my imp by 30%, and that's incredibly good, but another thing that it does is that it says all of my critical hits done by my imp have a 100% chance to increase the critical hit chance for my next Warlock Destruction spell by 100%. And again, I didn't have one. Now, this was actually going to end up affecting my Shadow Burn ability, which was massive amounts of damage. Even though it wasn't a fire spell, and unfortunately it's not a Shadow Flame spell either, nonetheless, due to the fact that we're going hybrid, I see a lot of potential now with this ability. Now the thing is, if we're using Shadow Burn, why are we still using Imp? That's kind of something you could say. So this makes me wonder if what I'm lacking is really just a Warlock Destruction spell. In fact, if I'm honest, it makes me wonder if Fireball is truly the right way to go. Perhaps Shadow Bolt is the proper way to go. In fact, I could see Shadow Bolt with Backlash with my imp possibly being a real option. But something that I'm also thinking about that will also be something to try in the Burning Crusade, or at least on the alpha that we have access to right now, is an Incinerate build. Incinerate also procs off of Backlash, but it does not exist in vanilla. It does not come out until TBC. Now, if you don't know what Incinerate is, it's a pretty basic fire spell that Warlocks did not get until they were level 64, as you can see here. It does a lot of damage, but it does even more damage if your target is affected by an Immolate spell. Now, Immolate is not required, I would think, necessarily for Incinerate. There's just some applicability there, perhaps, with just using it as a Backlash proc, and then maybe benefiting from the increased critical damage that we get from all these different spells that we've already been using to empower our imp in the first place. And there might be more stuff there with Conflagrate. Maybe we just always go for the Immolate, even though we're a melee build. Maybe we take Immolate anyway, go for the Immolate, Conflagrate, Immolate, and then spamming Incinerate after that. Maybe that's a possible TBC option, and I really like the fact that TBC is opening up new build paths for a build that I was already playing in vanilla and could actually warp it and make it better. Tell you guys why that particular fight was interesting. First and foremost, we dominated the guy, okay? And that's what makes it interesting, because yes, at this point, I'm pretty confident my character hit incredibly hard. My imp is hitting decently, but you have to remember, we're just spamming Sinister Strike. Most of the nuance really is coming from our movements. You saw in that last fight, I kited around the watchtower, and I could tell immediately from his reactions towards my kiting of him to the watchtower that I was going to win. Not only did he fail to reach me, so I knew he didn't have a lot of ways to close a gap, but he also didn't do any damage, right? And my imp was chunking him down, and all I had to do was jump. So I knew if my imp was basically capable of soloing him while I ran around and kited, that the game was basically over. That's the kind of stuff I'm trying to replicate at level 60. You know, but it becomes incredibly difficult because the imp is not scaling as well as I hoped. It seems to reach a bit of a power spike from, you know, right down at the bottom at level 20 up until maybe your mid 40s, and then for some reason, don't know why, it seems to drop off dramatically. Now, I haven't done enough runs with Ruin to really confirm whether or not, you know, that's going to change it. This is my first run with Ruin. Hopefully it does change it, but again, I'm not sure, and we haven't done enough testing, at least I haven't done enough testing to be confident in that. Hopefully it does make that difference, though. It seems like sometimes my imp either does a ridiculous amount of damage, and he's a huge help, or at least that's how it looks, maybe that's how it seems, and then it seems like in other fights, he's just not doing enough, he's not pulling his weight. Maybe the difference is in the opponent rather than the imp himself, right? And that's a good point that maybe I should try to keep in mind. I've seriously got to stop forgetting to summon my imp. I think what we're going to go ahead and do here in Eastern Faralos, we're definitely not going to complete the quest because I'm already well aware that this particular build has not shaped up to be the way that I want to play things, really, at level 60. So I'm going to kill as many of the Iron Fur Bears and the Wolves and even the Trents you can see in the background as I can, just to build up my quest tally, my quest count, so that when I re-roll, I can complete this quest just a little bit faster. You could argue that it could be, advantageous to use your bad builds to farm more freely, but really for me, I think I'm going to have to go through very, very many iterations, and as a result of that, I really just want to get to those iterations as quickly as I can, due to the fact that I really do have any gear in the world that I want really in my bank at this point, and as I continue to play, I'm only going to get better and better gear. I'm not really worried about losing my best build once I get it. Right? It's just getting there that seems to be the current issue. I will say, just as a tip, I think that the quest to kill him with fire, it's the Trent killing quest. You kill 15 of the elite Trents in Eastern or just Feralos in general. And yeah, I think that's one of the best quests that you could possibly do. And the main reasoning behind it is the fact that you can farm from 40 with a decent build all the way till your mid 50s rather, which is incredibly good, a very long period of time. Every single Trent gives so much XP that it just feels correct, right? It just feels like you should never skip it, and they're so easy as long as you have an interrupt or a stun or some form of CC for when they cast regrowth, because that can be a little bit annoying. Now, yes, you do have to kind of keep your eyes peeled. Something I was doing the entire time I was questing here is I was constantly worried I was going to get ganked. The land is really big, it's genuinely wild, and you never know where anybody is going to be. There are a lot of, well, I guess I could say there's a lot of verticality. It's very vertical, okay, in Feralos. People can be on a hill above you and you would never know. They could be behind one of the massive trees you can see in the background all over the place in Feralos. And yeah, you would literally never know without having track humanoids. It's one of those lands that, yes, it's sparsely populated in the sense that it's, rather large. It's going to be kind of difficult to find players to fight because, again, it is rather large and there are so many particular places, I guess, to be, right? Not everybody's going to the same places. So I think as a result of that, you constantly have to be on alert, right? You can't really be complacent despite the fact that the zone wants you to grow complacent. Because if you do that, well, as you've seen in some of my videos in the past in Feralos specifically, especially on my Fel-Touched characters, people get destroyed. People get completely caught out. And yeah, I was trying to make sure that did not happen to me. So as you can see, we made it from, I believe, 43 to 50 in less than probably 10 minutes. It was so incredibly quick, just killing the bears, the wolves, and the occasional forest walker in Feralos. Super, super easy. What I'm going to go ahead and do now is go to Winter Spring. I went ahead and got all of my Winter Spring quests, I believe, in a previous playthrough. So what I'm going to do is drop a Western Winter Spring and just kill as many things as I can. The goal is to hit 60 on this character and to sacrifice him to the gods, but we need to get a better build in a future playthrough. I do know that. What I want to do is actually get Fire Blast at level 20, and I definitely have enough marks of Ascension to do that, but every time I try to talk to Birth or Girth, whatever the ogre is that sells the, that gives you the quests rather for marks of Ascension at the spawn of the Fel-Touched spawn zone area, you know what I'm talking about. Once we get to that place and we talk to him, he actually does not offer us any quests, and that's pretty bad. I actually don't know how to make them appear. I need them though so that I can get more Hands of Fate, more Scrolls of Fortune, and maybe go for Fire Blast instead of perhaps Slice and Dice, which really has not benefited us at all at any point, as most of our damage comes from spells, and Slice and Dice, again, that's really going to make you hit more often. Now, I should probably be getting more Maelstrom procs off of that, but again, my damage is not even really coming mostly from Fireball, it's coming from my Imp. So I think we need to reassess what's worth having on a build like this, or even if a hybrid version of the build is good at all. Maybe Imp build is, or Imp spec rather, maybe that is something you do as a caster only. I mean, I know it's very, very strong with things like Chaos Bolt, so do I convert Happiness if I can talk to that ogre, get more quests, and redo my build a bit? Do I convert him to a non-hybrid version of himself, or do we try to double down with the Felguard? I think for now I'm going to stay with the hybrid way of doing things and just try to find a way that works, but I am seriously considering going with a Chaos Bolt build with Immolate and Conflagration, because honestly it's so incredibly fun and strong, and after watching other people play it, it really has enticed me. So you can see here that as I'm fighting this, my Searing Totem, yeah, a pretty decent, interesting ability that I got on this run, was doing quite a lot of damage on top of my Imp, and this makes me wonder if Searing Totem is a good pick. Is that something worth having with the Imp? I mean, it really does give me two small turrets at all times doing fire damage. Now the issue is that I can't really be going into talents for both, and it is a real shame that the talents that support so many of these integral build defining things, like maybe if you're totem based, if you're demon based, a lot of those talents do require a whole 5 talent points per talent. That really is quite a lot, and it does require you to go quite hard into certain niches. Now, maybe that's a good thing, probably is a good thing. It should, in theory, keep build diversity up by forcing people not to be so hybridized. But at the same time, it's really making it tough to be a melee demon hybrid right now. That seems incredibly difficult to do, almost like it wasn't intended. But you could see, or you saw, that the Searing Totem is pretty good, and I think it might actually be a pretty decent pick for future runs. I wouldn't pick it over something, crazy like Divine Shield, Lay on Hands, Wind Fury, Evasion, Sprint, anything that makes logical sense like that. But it could be, a decent B or C tier pickup that I wouldn't regret and maybe could actually see on the final iteration of this build. We also ended up getting Cursive Exhaustion at some point. I just realized I failed to point that out, but it's significant, right? Because it's a slow. And one thing I noticed is that if you're playing a melee class and you're not full of gap closing abilities, Sprint, Charge, maybe Intercept, some kind of slow, Hamstring, Wing Clip, Cursive Exhaustion, even Crippling Poison, right? These are incredibly integral parts to a melee build for PvP that without, you really can't compete in the slightest against anybody that can kite. I mean, we saw in my previous fight, kiting around the turret, he lacked gap closers, he lacked a way to slow me, and therefore he lacked the ability to win the fight. Cursive Exhaustion does give me that extra oomph. Maybe we can do something with 60 with this build just as a quick fun thing, but I think at the end of the day it still has to be sacrificed. One of the things I would like to do, I am going to sacrifice this character at the end of the video. Whether you see it or not, expect him to be reset, because of course the build genuinely does require a reset. But what I want to know from you guys is, how do you think I should build this particular character? What abilities should be prioritized? Did I miss any talents, right? Looking at Empowered Imp and Ruin, specifically Ruin rather. Ruin was something that for some reason I overlooked, right? So there could be other things like that. Should I focus more on the demon, less on, any kind of melee or hybrid applicability? Should I maybe not focus on the Enhancement Shaman talent that is increasing, converting my AP to SP, and then likewise the Protection Paladin talent that is a very similar thing by converting your strength? These are very, very integral hybrid talents, but it's very possible that we can get by with more of just the Imp and then fighting with SS and maybe go for Eviscerate or something like that as well. Be more melee based with the Imp as like a backup, a very, very strong backup. Maybe not the entire point of the build. I'm not really too sure. Maybe we should do that as well, not focus on the Imp as much, and maybe focus more on the Fireball and the hybrid aspect, and yeah, maybe go hard into those talents that I was just talking about maybe I should do away with. It's hard to tell, right? It actually is so difficult because there's 3 different things we're attempting to do with this one build. We're trying to be melee, we're trying to be hybrid, which is basically trying to be a caster, and we're trying to be a pet spec, an Imp-specific pet spec. Very, very many things, lots of different talents affecting all sorts of different abilities, and it can be difficult to really parse through which ones are worth getting, especially when you're like me and you're basing it almost entirely off of feel, raw damage output, and yeah, like how do the abilities literally apply themselves, perform in actual fights, not just what they're theoretically supposed to do. So that's kind of how I base my personal builds off of. They come off my personal anecdotes, things that I get directly from fights and experience that I have in the game. So what do you guys think? Should I go with a hybrid focused build? Should I focus on the demon specifically? Or do I do something completely crazy and focus on the melee? Or do I focus on like Chaos Bolt or something like that and completely switch to maybe a completely new character? Or do we just quit happiness, right? It's difficult. I'm not exactly sure. One thing I can say is that a really awesome viewer, you'll see this in a future video, actually did give me a draft deck. Now, a dealer's deck, I believe is what this actually is called. And what it does is it allows me to re-roll my first 4 abilities individually as many times as I would like. In other words, I can get a perfect start now on every single character on Seasonal without even trying. Not a perfect Fel-Touched start because that goes all the way to 20, but at least for that level 1 first 4 abilities, I can get it perfect every time in less than 10 minutes. No problem. Absolutely no problem at all. So there's so many different things I can do with that because I can make any build that I want, at least start for it effortlessly. So, this is a really good time to be asking me to play new and exciting builds, especially ones I have not played on the channel before. But I think that's going to be the end of this video, guys. If you enjoyed it, please make sure to give it a a like and subscribe. Doing a lot of different things between TBC, the occasional Fel-Touched class, custom class videos, and then the playthrough for the demon hybrid, and enjoying all of it. There will be more videos in the coming days. So like I said, hope you guys enjoyed. Mcdoubles out.